Hello and welcome to this latest episode in our series of Raising the Roof. This one is the Future of Homes Part 2, the role of shared ownership. If you are interested in Part 1, which was the homes of the 1950s or the 2020s, or indeed any of our other previous podcasts, then please just search Raising the Roof and everything will pop up as you need it there. So today, the role of shared ownership, blimey, I've got two guests. I've really got my work cut out today. I've been on extra espressos for this one because we've got the two firebrands of the housing world joining us today. First up is one of my favourite people in the housing world, and I genuinely do mean that. She's one of the few people that says it how she really sees it. If it wasn't for her dodgy southern accent, she could almost be from Yorkshire. Yes, it's of course Amy Nettleton. Those of you who perhaps have just landed from Mars and haven't come across Amy, she's the Assistant Director of Development, Sales and Marketing at Aster Group. She also has more chairs than IKEA. She's the chair of the National Housing Group. She's the chair of the National Shared Ownership Campaign. In fact, the only thing that she's not the chair of is my board, thankfully. I know she's exceptionally proud to work for Aster, and she's part of their what I describe as their tip-top development and sales team. She has got a bit of a long-standing reputation and a real drive and determination to make a difference in the sales side of housing, and that really does shine through. Within our sort of podcast series, we've had a bit of a recurring theme. I wish I could say it was designed, but it wasn't. But we've had disruptors on the panel, and I think it's fair to say that Amy follows in that tradition. She's acted as a real catalyst for change, a bit like a virus for change from within the sector to change and influence policy and develop a sales offering for both now and in the future. She is without doubt the queen of shared ownership, and she's campaigned tirelessly to raise its profile and popularity to where it is now. And she's even showed a willingness to work with those who perhaps don't fully share her passion for sales and shared ownership, although some of them have allegedly woken up with a horse's head in their bed. All this means that she's barely got time to post the photos of her and a beloved horse on Instagram. So if you are looking for updates there, then you're going to be sadly disappointed because they never emerge. And it is amazing how any of those photos make it to Insta, as Amy is a real technophobe. A real summary of her is all the gear and no idea. She's got the life I'd love to have. In fact, if reincarnation is real, she's one of two people I want to come back as. She has a great life. She lives by the sea. But I would say, for those colleagues on the podcast, Yorkshire does have some of the best coastlines anywhere in the world. So a quick plug there for any of those Yorkshire coastal resorts. So that's our first guest. That's Amy. So you might be thinking, blimey, how do we follow that? Who's our second guest? Well, our second guest is Sally Lynch. Sally is our sales guru here at Yorkshire Housing. Every sales target we give her, no matter how challenging at the start of the year, where I shake my head and think there's no way she's going to hit that, she just smashes through. And there's a phrase in Yorkshire Housing, which is that, you need to be more Sally. There's a bit of a reputation that she's got in the business. She joined Yorkshire Housing in 2002, so she's been on our journey for quite some time. You can't keep a good person down, and that's how she rose to her current position of head of sales. And I think it's real testament to her, and also the work that Amy's done, that when Sally first joined us, Yorkshire Housing only sold a real handful of shared ownership homes, about 20 a year. Sally was asked to sort of grow that part of the business from a sales team of one. We're Yorkshire by name and Yorkshire by nature. Needless to say, that sales team has now expanded. And last year we sold 175 homes. And this year we're forecast to sell 250. Keeping the equine link from Amy's intro, Sally is far from a one-trick pony. She is the Yorkshire Housing enforcer. Wherever we have a problem, we send in Sally to sort it out. And I'm constantly thinking about what impossible task I can give her next. Needless to say, she just growls at me menacingly and then just carries on delivering. So they're my two guests. Let's dive straight in. Let's start first, Amy, with you. I had, Amy, my first eureka moment with shared ownership several years ago when the analysis showed that it was the lowest monthly housing cost after renting. When did the penny drop for you? How did you sort of first fall in love with shared ownership?
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for that extraordinary introduction, which I'm definitely going to lift and pick some audio out of that. So thank you very much, and a pleasure. I suppose, when did it fall? When did the penny drop for me? Although you say Yorkshire is the mecca of the world, and being married to a Yorkshireman, I definitely get told that on a daily basis. But I'm hail from the Midlands, so I was born and bred in Leicester, and I started my housing career in Leicester. And I started actually as a chartered surveyor, trained to be a chartered surveyor, realised that actually valuing sheds and retail was pretty dull, and then thought, oh, I'll get into residential. So then moved into residential, and ran estate agencies over Leicester, so an independent network of estate agencies. And then saw an advert at Leicester Housing Association back in the day, and they needed a sales and marketing manager, pretty much like what you said about kind of what Sally did at Yorkshire, starting from nothing really, starting from their first development for sale. Realising they were quite forward thinking in that time, realising that they wanted private sector knowledge, they wanted an estate agency kind of a focus to be able to sell their products, and it started there. And it really did, and I know this sounds super cliche, but it's more and more important the longer I go on this journey, alongside people like yourselves and people like Sally, who are just so committed to it, is you get the best of both worlds for me. I love property, I love anything to do with selling, all of that. I still do that punch in the air moment when I get the WhatsApp on a daily basis of how many we've reserved, how many we've completed, and I still get that buzz of like, yes, we've got it. But we really do change people's lives, and I think, and you've heard me say this a lot, and I think it's overlooked sometimes, of this side of the business, of the impact that this really does have on people's lives, and the opportunities and changes that it gives them. And we're one part of the journey from a housing association point of view, from the rented side that we deliver, but the opportunities and the options that this tenure gives people really does change their lives. So for me, it was a gradual journey, but my journey has always been property related, be that commercial or residential. So
just on that then, Amy, in terms of, for those people who might have landed from Mars and don't know what shared ownership is, how would you sum it up in a few sentences? What, sell it to me. Give me your best sales pitch of shared ownership. It's like
the Wolf of Wall Street, isn't it? Sell me that pen.
Sell me the house.
Can you sign this? Yeah, you need a pen. So basically, it's as simple as you buy a bit and you rent a bit. And that really is as simple as that. It's going through some changes. It's had some big policy changes, which I know we'll probably touch upon later. So where we are at the moment, and the majority of the delivery is, you buy anything from 25 to 75%. You pay a subsidised rent on the remainder, usually worked out between 2 and 2.75%. And then you just get the mortgage on the bit, or the funding the bit that you don't rent. So in basic terms, Nick, the beauty of that is you only need a deposit on that amount. So if you've got a 50% share, you only need a 5-10% deposit on that 50% share. So this is where that accessibility of it is so key. And I think as we move into a world where interest rates are set to rise, and we're starting to see a different economic landscape, that ability that's been so difficult even up to now, of like Bank of Mum and Dad, which I know probably you'll be feeling the pressures, and Bank of grandparents, of how the hell do I get and help my family and kids and stuff to have that security. We're talking a few £1,000s in more places across the country than not. I mean, we're excluding central London obviously here, but what we're talking is a few £1,000s rather than tens and twenties of thousands of pounds to actually access that property ladder. And I think we can talk about the fact that home ownership shouldn't be the key goal and the be all and everything. But we live in a society, we're not Europe, we live in a society where people want to own their own home. And, you know, what we have to do is realise that and actually look at what we can offer, especially as housing associations and organisations such as ourselves that do much more than just provide that home ownership solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely key point that you raised there about, you know, how we respond to the reality of what several generations now have been sort of almost hardwired to think. And I think your point about interest rates is really, really key, because I was really struck the other day when I saw some analysis that basically said that you've now got a generation of people who think anything that less than 1% interest rates is the norm. We've had 14 years of really low interest rates, and you know, you just sort of think, wow, you know, that's a real sort of eureka moment again for me. Just turning to the sort of national picture, because you know, I described you as the queen of shared ownership, and I do genuinely think that you've led this national campaign, massive success in terms of getting that wider understanding. But from your perspective, what do you think has been the biggest success of that campaign? And also, if you were queen of the universe, what one thing would you still change?
Wow. Okay. So I think the main fundamental thing, and I was thinking back to like when Sally and I first met, and we'd brush shoulders at events, and us salespeople, we pretend like, oh, we're all inclusive and we want to work together, but we don't really, because we're all competitive and we've all got the best idea, and we're all like, oh, I can't tell you too much because you'll nick it. But actually,
can I just say at this point that's an Amy view? That's of course not a view of Yorkshire Housing or anybody who works for Yorkshire Housing.
I was honest, it's a sales view. It's not a, you know, collaboration and stuff. But actually, the reason I say that is because the key changer, it's not even a word, but the key change in this whole journey for me. So like I've been at Aster now for 10, 11 years. So the key difference in these past few years is we've decided to work together. That is the key difference. And I think the reason for that is there's a lot of us in the sector that have been around not too long that we're turned off to it, but long enough that we want change. And we've got that energy and that drive that actually we really believe in what we're doing. And I think too long it has been overlooked of, oh, you know, it's just sales, or, you know, and the social value and what it gives, it's been our drive really to promote that. And I think for the likes of a lot of us that have built our networks over the years, have actually really come together and gone, do you know what? We can still remain our competitive edge because we're good enough, okay? And the people in this sector are bloody brilliant, right? And they know their stuff, and they're not afraid to push, okay? And I think what we've all done is gone, do you know what? If we all support each other a little bit, but don't give away our identity, because like Sally, I've still got a profile to give at Aster. I've still got to give assurance to my board that I can sell my sales program. And, you know, how do I balance delivering a national program that highlights every other provider in the country to delivering Aster's goals and ambitions. Yeah. So it's a very fine line of going, how do we work together to really promote? And the thing is, it's been an education thing. We've switched it from a promotional activity to an education activity, because it makes all of our jobs easier. And actually, what we really need to understand is the impact. If a couple of us get it wrong, it impacts everybody. Yeah. Because lenders will start to look at it and go, do you know what? Actually, it's a bit more risky. So they will start to withdraw. We'll start to see the actual landscape that we've worked so hard over the years to get up to. You know, we've got about 20 odd lenders now. When I started, we had 4. Yeah. So, you know, we've got this retail lending market that's really buoyant. And I think we've all got this shared vision that is like, do you know what? If a few of us, especially, there's a lot of sales teams across the country that've got 1 and 2 people. How do they manage that? How do they manage their messaging? So I think it's definitely been, we're stronger together, and that sounds well cliche, so you know, let's not audio that, but it is that kind of stronger together. And if it's one thing that I could change, it's the perception that it doesn't help. It's the perception that it's still seen as like the, you know, the ugly sister at the disco kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like a bit of a last resort. You know, oh, I've tried everything else, and oh God, I suppose I'll go for shared ownership, or oh my God, you don't want to touch that. I think it's still that bit for me that actually the people that I talk to, or the stories that I get from my sales negotiators that are moving these people in, we've done wonders for their lives, and it's a decision that they wouldn't have been able to have without it. So it would be that for me.
That's great. I mean, I took 3 shared things from that: shared vision, shared approach, and a shared message. So yeah, bang on. You talked about educating rather than promoting. And Sally, I want to come over to you if I could, because as you know, I moan repeatedly about my 3 kids and trying to rehome them all. I want to keep my dog, but I want to rehome my kids. So, you know, if my kids were up at this time of day, and we're doing an early record of this session, so massive thanks to Amy because she loves early mornings. How would you sell shared ownership to someone like them who's starting out on the housing ladder, Sally?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's such a great choice for first-time buyers leaving home, and for a lot of the reasons that Amy's pointed out as well. And I picked up quite a bit from what you've said as well, Amy, that, you know, I wanted to kind of expand on a little bit. And, you know, some of that is the difference that it makes. And I've actually got personal experience because there's a site that we've sold shared ownership just near my home. And I personally know 3 of the kids that have moved on there that, you know, my kids babysat for. And it's just like to see that community spirit as well is really, really something that perhaps goes unnoticed as well, is that you've got all of these young people on the same site that are kind of growing together and talking together, and they've all got the same aspirations, that they want to buy more shares and they want to kind of continue to invest in the property, which I think is a great thing to see. But as far as your kids, Nick, I mean, I think shared ownership might be a way of kind of moving a little bit away from the, you know, requirements that it's bank of mum and dad, just because actually your initial costs of getting into a shared ownership home is so much lower. And, you know, the homes tend to be, you know, better designed, I think, and, you know, to better standards than you might see if you were buying that from private developer. But yeah, I think it's a great way for young people to buy the first home. I mean, the only barrier that I would see to that is the availability, and obviously it's something that's really accelerating in the north. And you know, as you said, you know, we went from sort of 20 homes to 250 homes, and it's been quite a rapid acceleration to get to that number, and being part of the groups and obviously being able to sort of get the advice and the learning, the best practice from, you know, organisations like Aster and Amy, who, as you've said, is the undisputed queen of shared ownership. It's you know, I feel really fortunate that we're in that position to learn from them, because we've had such an acceleration in the north. And part of that is the promotion, and part of that is that people are starting to get to know what shared ownership is and get really interested in it, and think of that as something that's maybe not the ugly sister anymore, or starting to emerge as, you know, a swan from being in that category. So that's just such a positive thing, and really it's just that we need more.
I think your point, Sally, which we also overlook, we say it a lot on our rented stuff, don't we? We're building communities. We say it a lot. We never really say it on our sales side, and it is so true. Yeah. You know, you're built back in the, like when I first started at Leicester Housing, we were a big regeneration kind of HA, and that was what it was all about. And we do a lot more of that at Aster now through kind of our community land trusts and stuff. But it is that point of people want to stay local, you know, especially now with you know, new hybrid ways of working and stuff. It is just that way of that people can have that community.
Yeah, and I also kind of want to, you know, engage more with our shared owners, and, you know, encourage them to staircase or help them in that respect, or point them in the right direction, and try and encourage that community feel on our sites, because, you know, we've got I think it's 18 shared owners on this site, and they all seem to be first time buyers. And they're all fairly local, and you know, going to the sites, I pass it and kind of just driving onto the site or calling in, I can see that community spirit there. And I think you're right. I think that's something that, you know, we need to promote.
Can I just come in on that? Because you mentioned about staircasing, and just for people who are listening who perhaps don't know what that is, that's where people buy an increase in share in their home. But the levels of staircasing are still relatively low. And I'm interested for both of you, really, but starting with you, really, Sally, because you did mention it. Why do you think the levels are so low? And is there anything else we could or should do to encourage greater take-up? And then I'll come to you, Amy, with a similar question.
And I might have a different kind of response to Amy, because Amy's got a very established kind of group of people that maybe staircase more. I think what we're doing in Yorkshire is that it's almost like a restart of the shared ownership programme for us, because we did have quite a few years that we didn't build a lot of shared ownership homes. And I think with these new shared owners that we're seeing coming through now, I think will actively staircase. I think that they've got a real desire to buy more shares in the home. And I think it's almost like a new shared owner that we need to work with them and obviously encourage them. We've also got a portfolio of shared ownership leaseholders who perhaps don't and won't continue to staircase out or buy more shares. So I think it's kind of a different buyer that we're seeing coming through at the moment, and I think that there will be active wanting to buy more shares of the home as and when they've got the ability to do so.
Amy, over to you.
And I'm so glad you've asked this, right? Because we're obsessed at the minute, or government policy dictates that we're obsessed at the minute, that we measure the success of shared ownership when people move out of it or buy more of it, right? We don't build it with that in mind, do we? You don't sit at board and go, do you know what? We'll build these homes for people that need them and we can't wait to get them out, right? We don't think like that. So we've lost the success generator of why we do shared ownership. We do shared ownership because it gives security. It gives those people that have got the other option. So relationship breakdown, kids want to stay near schools. What's the other option? They're going to private rented. No, they're going to shared ownership where it's secure and they can stay close to family and networks. Right. So that's how we really market it. And that's our DNA of why we build this stuff. And then 2 years later down the line, we're obsessed with people buying more, or we're obsessed with moving them out to show that shared ownership has been this success, right? What the staircasing figures show is one transactional route out or to buy more. What they don't show, which is a really buoyant market, you only need to look at people's resale programs. What they don't show is back-to-back transactions. So where people put their properties on the market and they staircase to 100% at the same time. They don't show that because that's not a true staircasing figure. They don't show equally when they kind of remortgage and then staircase out and sell on. So I think we need to take it in a much broader sense of what do we want success to look like. And you know, if you said to somebody, you're buying this property because of your current situation and what you're looking for is security for your family and to be close to your networks, but actually what you really need to start thinking about is buying more, well, that's not what they bought into. And there will be a group of people, like Sally quite rightly says, that it is their aim to go in and buy more and outright buy it. But equally, that pool of people is probably their first or second home, okay? Did you say your first or second home, or did you move out within 4 or 5 years? Did you, if you'd have stayed there and thought, oh, I can buy more, you didn't. And I think we need to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And staircasing is one element that we're so fixated on that does that mean shared ownership's a success? I can't move out of it or I can't buy more. But we also need to overlay in there market conditions. It's no different to like when I buy my property and I've bought a wrong time in the market or I've bought in the wrong place and do you know what, the market's fallen or it's a bit saturated. It's no different. Those market conditions are at play. And I think we need to really, there's so many different strands of where staircasing is right and it should be done and promoted well. But equally, for those people that was never their aim or goal. So don't try and make that a success factor later down the line.
It's a great point. And I think, you know, quite rightly, I did say that, you know, I've got 2 of the firebrand disruptors of the shared ownership world on, and I think you're absolutely right to to sort of, reset really some of the sort of narrative and the expectations on that, because there's some really good comparators that you've made there in terms of outside shared ownership, how people's process and mindset work. Sally, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and measuring that resale numbers really is going to be something that is very, very key as well to measuring the success. So yeah, I agree. There is a lot of focus on staircasing being the way that we measure that, and maybe it isn't, and we need to look at how many resales we start to do, but we've got quite a new portfolio almost. So that's something that we need to start to measure, I think.
And I think there's that timing thing as well. So like Sally quite rightly says, and I know you probably want to move on, Nick, but this bit's important. Yeah. So like Sally quite rightly says, in the north, you've seen this resurgence over the past few years, okay? You don't move out of your home in 1 or 2 years, do you? You want to settle, you want to stay there. Yeah. The average time of somebody moving on is 4.5 years, okay? And that tracks with a remortgage, right? So we're going to have to wait. And I know the tenure's been around for 40 years, and I know all of that, and I know that we've got a long-standing backlog, but equally that was a different generation, like Sally quite rightly said. Yeah. And a lot of that stock is made up in different ways, leases and DISOs and stuff. So it's looking at now of going, okay, what does this program that you're building now that everybody's really accelerated over the past 2 to 3 years, what does that look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
That's the important thing. And actually being open and honest with yourself and saying, does staircasing equal success? Maybe for some people, but not for everybody.
Yeah, great point. I think you've absolutely ran the message home. So if people are listening to this and they still haven't got that point, goodness me, they need to rewind and go back to it again. Let me sort of move us along a little bit, just to dig myself out of a hole. There are, as you mentioned before, both of you referenced some of the changes to the model that are coming through. What's your predictions of the impact that they're going to have?
How long have we got?
You've got about 2 minutes. So I've got loads of other stuff I want to get to. So just headline.
So overall, I think we've got to welcome. All we've wanted is government to take shared ownership seriously, right? They have. It's the first time in my generation that they've done wholesale changes to the product, and I mean wholesale changes. So we've got to take that on board, and we've got to work with them and be grateful for that. I think again, 1% staircasing, 10% shares, £500 repairs and maintenance. My main worries, concerns are, how do we all deliver that the same or the same kind of level of service for customers up and down the country, which is what I spoke about earlier, of us all working together so customers get the same kind of service. I think that £500 repairs and maintenance will deliver a lot of different services up and down the country. And that's not me saying that it's not the right thing to do. I just think the administration of it and how we manage it is questionable. I think 1% shares, again, they are cash purchases. They aren't attached to mortgages or anything. And I think we open up potential old cousin down the road right to buy suddenly he's got a couple of bit of cash to do 1% shares. But and I think especially up in the north, what we're not. It's been very clear in the guidance that they can do unsecured lending on that. So you can get people with lower value areas that could be buying shared ownership on a credit card. So the actual reality of that could be huge. And I am catastrophizing here, but could be huge. And I think actually it's a polarized market anyway, and it's a polarized market for the very reasons we do it and we're committed to it. Should somebody who can only afford 10% of something be buying? Question. And I think it's around the management and long-term maintenance of that. I think it opens up. It does open up, especially for markets such as Greater London. I think it's a different conversation, but I definitely think it's us working together now more than ever is so key and fundamental for the reputational status of the product and the attraction to lenders and stuff moving forward. That's really quick.
That is, and it's a great summary as well. So thanks, Amy. Sally, anything you want to add to that?
Well, Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's about the consistency, about how it's delivered, and that's questionable. And we're still working through our own, procedures and how we're going to deliver it. So I think that's key, really, that people will get a different service, or depending on which provider they go to, and that's going to be really important as well. As far as the sort of the low percentage shares, and I totally get what Amy's saying. Should somebody who can only buy a really small amount of a property be buying it at all? So the affordability assessments will kind of help that, I know, but yeah, it's something that we're welcoming. We have to embrace it. It's good for shared owners. It really is, and we just need to work out how to deliver it, really. But yeah, it's good. It is good news.
You mentioned there about the sort of sales market. What's your predictions in terms of where that's heading? We've obviously got all the issues at the moment swirling around, increasing cost of living, interest rates for the first time in 14 plus years, sort of heading upwards, changes in terms of income as a result of NI and tax changes coming through. What are you thinking of as we head into 2022? What's your prediction for the housing market?
I mean, we've had such a boom, haven't we, this year? We really have. I mean, it's just been absolutely unprecedented, the amount of demand that we've had. So, I mean, the predictions are, and what we're kind of seeing now at the moment is the market is cooling a little bit, which is quite early. So going into next year, I think that things will start to steady out, and we're not going to see the kind of massive demand that we've seen. But it's a supply it's supply and demand, isn't it? And the supply is not meeting demand, and I can't see that that's going to happen early next year. But I don't think it's going to be a year like we've had. I think things will settle down considerably going into the new year next year.
What about you, Amy? That's the view from the frozen north. What about the affluent south, where money's awash and you're drinking champagne for breakfast?
How's not things like when you were a kid, Nick, not when I were a kid. I agree with Sally. I think what we've got to be really careful on is how we're measuring the differentiation of success in shared ownership market, for example. So which will be like for you. For us, we can't sell them quick enough at the minute. So for us, what's going to stall our targets or our ability to realise those is the inventory. Okay. Yeah. So what we don't want to start doing in quarter 2, quarter 3 next year is go, actually, sales income have dropped since last year. Well, has it, or has inventory dropped? And I think they're the two different variables that we need to make sure that we're tracking and giving some narrative to when we're reporting sales income levels and market levels. I think the interest rates will be a very interesting one, but what we do often see is that the affordable market tends to fare better in these times of uncertainty, and especially with a product like shared ownership that you are only exposed to an element of the market. Then if people are thinking about buying and moving home, then usually what happens is shared ownership does get a bit more airtime, and it is a product that people feel a bit more comfortable with. And I think it'll be interesting to see whether actually with those potential changes and the changes to the policy, do they come hand in hand at the right time? I'm going
to spend just 1 minute, because I'm not usually in the habit of promoting other people's podcasts. But obviously, in the huge amounts of spare time you clearly have, Amy, you've also set up with one of our future Raising the Roof podcast guests. You heard it here first, Mr. Chowdhury. The second best housing podcast, Socha Hour. So just in 1 minute, just give us a quick sort of insight in terms of the thinking behind that, and how and what its success has been in terms of raising awareness.
Yeah, so I wanted to do this kind of weekly chat and stuff, and Sochat's been going around 4 years now, and we've tailored it back this year to not every week. We ran 3 years with weekly content. So what we're doing now is probably doing some more tailored content monthly for podcasts and live, and you've been a great supporter in that, Nick, so thank you. For me, it was about a place where the network can grow, and if you are on your own or you've got a small sales team, you can come online at night and chat and have a place to understand and maybe learn. But equally, and you touched upon it earlier, I want to engage with those people that hate shared ownership, that think it's a scam, that don't think it works, because actually if we're really content, if we're really adamant about changing and making things better, if I'm only listening to my own point of view or people that think it's great, then no change can really happen that's fundamental, can it? So we have to work together. That is with varied success we're having with that at the moment, but we continue. So yes, thank you. I think if anyone else, we've got some good plans for it in 2022. So if anyone else wants to be part of that, has got any ideas of a live or a podcast, get on, hit me up.
We're in the quick fire round. So this is 1 or 2 word answers. We've got 5 minutes left. Well, this is to help our listeners get more of an insight in terms of you and what makes you tick. So let's kick off. We'll go to our resident technophobe first. Amy, that's you. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Sally?
Oh, Apple all day long.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Following the equine sort of theme, horse or horsepower? We'll go Sally first.
Oh, horsepower. Sorry, I'm a bit of a petrol head.
Oh, no electric car, Sally? No electric car?
Not yet. It's coming though.
Okay. Amy, this will be a tough one for you.
Yeah, it is. It's equal for me.
You can't have equal. You've got to choose one.
I've got to pick Ping. It's got to be the horse.
Horse, okay. So, sport, keeping the equine theme. Horse racing or football? Sally, yeah.
Football. Sorry, Amy. It's got to be football.
Which team?
Leeds.
Oh, gosh, that'll be a topical one. Amy?
Horse racing. Although I do like football, Leicester City, we're doing well.
Oh, right. Topical. Amy, suspect you're about to lose this next one, hands down. How many emails in your inbox right now? To the nearest 1,000.
Unread.
You can have any.
Oh, I've got in my inbox 38,000.
Wow. Yeah, there's about 50 in there that's unread, but yeah, 50.
I've not got 38,000 unread. I've got about 8,000 unread.
Yeah, and what's worrying is all of those for both of you from me. Right, what's the one gadget you take with you on a desert island?
My phone.
Yeah, same. My phone. Yeah, as long as I can get a signal. Apple Music. Yeah.
So while we're on the theme of desert islands, Amy, as somebody who's always constantly on holiday, what's your favourite holiday destination?
Oh, I like skiing.
Skiing? That's not a destination. That's a holiday theme.
Zermatt, Switzerland.
Right. Sally?
Yeah, for me, if it was a city, I'd go to Seattle. If it was an island, I'd go to Bali.
Oh, blimey.
You pay her too much, Jesus.
Not one of you have chosen Yorkshire. Shocking. Favourite film? Amy?
Godfather.
Sally?
Oh.
I'm surprised Sally's not the Godfather, given how she works in Yorkshire housing.
Yeah, I'll have to pass on that. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Favourite band or artist?
Fleetwood Mac at the minute.
Oh gosh, blimey.
I know. I have a bit of a resurgence.
Right, Sally.
Okay, I'm gonna go dance. I'm gonna go. Yeah, favorite dance artist. That's it. Yeah, Pete Tong. I'll go.
Oh right. Oh right.
Sally, you little raver.
Most interesting person you've ever met.
Okay, I can go on that one. I'm gonna say my auntie Hilly, who worked on the Mercy ships in the 90s. She's got an amazing story.
Wow.
So I'm gonna say yeah. My auntie Hilly.
Oh, Amy, beat that. Have you met Auntie Hilly?
No, I haven't. Most interesting person I've ever met. It's got to be you, Nick, surely.
No, you can't have that. It's far. That's a cop-out. Come on.
Do you know what? It'd probably be my late father-in-law, actually.
Right.
He was, full of wisdom, stories, and was always the person that you could go to that had put you right. So yeah, Peter.
Great. Lovely family connections from both of you. Nice one. Right, well, that's it. It's time to close the front door on this episode of Raising the Roof. So first of all, thanks, Amy and Sally. I knew this would be a tricky one to control, and sure enough, I didn't get to ask half the stuff that I wanted to. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Our next episode is The Power of Brand, but don't forget that you can find all our other episodes wherever you get your usual podcasts. But it's a wrap for now. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next one.